In the summer of 1922, British archaeologist Sir Leonard Woolley knelt in the dusty excavation pit at her, his weathered hands carefully brushing away millennia of accumulated sand from what would prove to be one of archaeology's most spectacular discoveries, the Royal Cemetery of Ur, where the golden helmet of Meskalem dug and the elaborate headdress of Queen Pwabi would soon emerge from their ancient resting places, providing tangible evidence of the extraordinary wealth and power wielded by Mesopotamia's earliest kings, rulers whose names had been lost to history for over 4,000 years, until cuneiform tablets begin revealing their stories, their conquests, their divine claims to authority, and their role in establishing the very foundations of civilization itself. The Mesopotamian kings, emerging from the fertile alluvium between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers around 3500 BCE, represented humanity's first experiment with centralized political authority, divine kingship, and the complex administrative systems that would govern urban populations numbering in the tens of thousands. Their reigns documented through an unprecedented wealth of archaeological evidence, including royal inscriptions, administrative tablets, monumental architecture, and burial practices that reveal a sophisticated understanding of statecraft, military organization, religious authority, and economic management that would influence governmental structures across the ancient world for millennia to come. Archaeological investigations at sites such as Ur, Lagash, Babylon, and Nineveh have uncovered palace complexes spanning multiple acres, royal tombs containing hundreds of grave goods, including weapons of gold and silver, elaborate jewelry, musical instruments, and even the remains of court attendants who accompanied their rulers into death, providing material evidence for the extraordinary power and wealth concentrated in the hands of these early monarchs who claimed divine sanction for their rule while simultaneously developing the administrative tools necessary to govern complex urban societies. The earliest Mesopotamian kings emerged during the Uruk period, roughly 4000 to 3100 BCE, when archaeological evidence suggests that population growth, agricultural intensification, and craft specialization created the need for centralized coordination of labor, resources, and trade relationships, leading to the development of the world's first cities and the political institutions necessary to govern them, with rulers like Enmerkar and Lugalbanda becoming legendary figures, whose exploits were celebrated in epic literature while their historical existence is supported by archaeological finds including cylinder seals, administrative tablets, and monumental architecture that demonstrates the emergence of a ruling elite capable of mobilizing massive human and material resources for construction projects, military campaigns, and religious ceremonies. The institution of Mesopotamian kingship drew its legitimacy from a complex theological framework that portrayed rulers as chosen representatives of the gods, responsible for maintaining cosmic order, ensuring agricultural fertility, protecting the city from enemies, and serving as intermediaries between the divine and human realms. A conception of royal authority that required kings to demonstrate their worthiness through military success, architectural achievements, legal reforms, and religious devotion, while simultaneously developing the bureaucratic apparatus necessary to collect taxes, administer justice, maintain standing armies, and coordinate the complex economic activities that supported urban civilization. The archaeological record reveals that early Mesopotamian kings ruled from palace complexes that served not only as royal residences but as administrative centers, religious focal points, and economic hubs where tribute was collected, goods were redistributed, craftsmen produced luxury items for the court and export markets, and scribes maintained the detailed records that provide modern scholars with unprecedented insight into ancient governmental operations, social hierarchies, economic systems, and diplomatic relationships that connected Mesopotamian city-states with trading partners across the ancient Near East. From the cedar forests of Lebanon to the copper mines of Anatolia, the lapis lazuli quarries of Afghanistan, and the gold deposits of Nubia. Royal inscriptions carved in stone and impressed on clay tablets reveal that Mesopotamian kings understood their role as builders of civilization, with rulers like Gilgamesh of Uruk, Eonatum of Lagash, and Urnammu of Ur commissioning massive construction projects including city walls, irrigation canals, temple complexes, and royal palaces that required the coordination of thousands of workers, sophisticated engineering knowledge, and vast material resources, while simultaneously developing legal codes, standardized weights and measures, and diplomatic protocols that facilitated trade, maintained social order, and established precedents for governmental authority that would influence political development across the ancient world. The material culture associated with Mesopotamian kingship demonstrates the extraordinary wealth and artistic sophistication achieved by these early rulers, with archaeological discoveries including the golden helmet of Meskalem dug, the elaborate grave goods from the royal cemetery of Ur, the intricate relief sculptures from Assyrian royal palaces, and the glazed brick decorations from Babylonian ceremonial architecture, providing evidence for the concentration of skilled craftsmen, precious materials, and artistic traditions in royal courts that served as centers of cultural innovation and artistic patronage, while the standardized iconography of royal power, including divine symbols, ceremonial weapons, and architectural motifs spread throughout the region through trade relationships, diplomatic exchanges, and military conquests that extended Mesopotamian political and cultural influence. Across the ancient Near East, the evolution of Mesopotamian kingship can be traced through distinct phases, beginning with the early dynastic period to 900 to 334 BCE, when city-states were ruled by Lugals and Ensi who combined military, religious, and administrative functions while competing for regional dominance through warfare, alliance building, and economic competition, followed by the Akkadian period to 334 to 15 BCE, when Sargon of Akkad established the world's first multi-ethnic empire by conquering Sumerian city-states and extending Mesopotamian political authority from the Persian Gulf to the Mediterranean Sea, creating administrative precedents and imperial ideologies that would be adopted and adapted by subsequent rulers, including the Earthly Dynasty 2112-2000 BCE, whose kings like Urnammu and Shulgi developed sophisticated bureaucratic systems for governing a territorial state that included dozens of cities, hundreds of agricultural settlements, and complex networks of canals, roads, and communication systems that enabled centralized control over vast territories and diverse populations. The Mesopotamian concept of divine kingship, evidenced through royal inscriptions, religious texts, and archaeological remains of coronation ceremonies and royal burial practices, established the theoretical framework for monarchical authority that would influence political development throughout the ancient world, with kings claiming to rule by divine mandate, while simultaneously developing practical governmental institutions including professional armies, trained bureaucracies, judicial systems, and economic policies that enabled them to exercise effective control over complex urban societies, manage agricultural production, regulate trade relationships, maintain public works projects, and defend their territories against external enemies and internal rebellions. Archaeological investigations at royal sites across Mesopotamia have revealed the extraordinary scale and sophistication of palace complexes that served as the nerve centers of ancient kingdoms, with excavations at Mari uncovering a palace containing over 300 rooms, extensive archives of diplomatic correspondence, elaborate throne rooms decorated with wall paintings depicting royal ceremonies, and residential quarters for the royal family, court officials, and palace staff, while similar investigations at Babylon, Nineveh, and Persepolis have revealed audience halls capable of accommodating thousands of visitors, administrative wings containing offices for royal scribes and financial officials, and defensive features including massive walls, fortified gates, and strategically positioned towers that protected royal residences, while symbolically demonstrating the power and authority of the monarchs who built them. The Sumerian king list, a cuneiform document compiled during the Earthly period, but incorporating much earlier traditions, provides a legendary chronology of Mesopotamian rulers beginning with kings, who supposedly reigned for thousands of years before the Great Flood, followed by dynasties from various city-states including Kish, Uruk, and Lagash, whose rulers are presented as the legitimate successors to divine authority on earth, though archaeological evidence suggests that many of these early kings ruled contemporaneously rather than sequentially, competing for regional dominance while developing the political institutions, military technologies, and diplomatic practices that would characterize Mesopotamian statecraft for over 3 millennia. The earliest historically attested Mesopotamian kings, including in Mebaraj of Kish and Gilgamesh of Uruk, ruled during the early dynastic the first period to 900 to 750 BCE, when archaeological evidence indicates the emergence of centralized political authority in major urban centers, with excavations revealing fortified palace complexes, standardized administrative practices, and material culture indicating the concentration of wealth and power in royal courts that could command the labor necessary for monumental construction projects while maintaining professional military forces equipped with bronze weapons, wheeled vehicles, and siege equipment that enabled them to project power beyond their immediate territories. The institution of Mesopotamian kingship developed within a complex religious framework that portrayed rulers as earthly representatives of patron deities, responsible for maintaining the cosmic order through proper ritual performance, temple construction, and the administration of divine justice, a conception of royal authority documented through thousands of votive inscriptions, dedicatory texts, and religious hymns that celebrate kings as providers of prosperity, defenders against chaos, and intermediaries between the human and divine realms. While archaeological evidence from temple complexes reveals the intimate connection between religious and political authority through the physical integration of palace and temple architecture, the royal patronage of religious festivals, and the involvement of kings in the selection and installation of high-ranking religious officials. Royal inscriptions from the early dynastic period reveal that Mesopotamian kings understood warfare as both a practical necessity for territorial expansion and resource acquisition, and a religious obligation to extend the authority of their patron deities, with rulers like Eonatum of Lagash commissioning detailed accounts of military campaigns that describe not only tactical operations and strategic objectives but also the divine support that ensured victory, the proper treatment of conquered populations, and the redistribution of captured wealth through temple offerings, palace distribution, and public works projects that demonstrated royal generosity while reinforcing the connection between military success and legitimate authority. The archaeological record of early dynastic Mesopotamia reveals a sophisticated material culture associated with royal courts, including elaborate burial practices evidenced at the royal cemetery of Ur, where kings and queens were interred with hundreds of grave goods including golden vessels, jewelry set with precious stones, musical instruments decorated with mythological figures, weapons inlaid with silver and copper, and ceremonial standards that depicted royal banquets and military processions, while the discovery of human sacrifices accompanying royal burials provides evidence for the extraordinary authority exercised by early Mesopotamian monarchs who could command absolute loyalty from court officials, military personnel, and religious attendants. The economic foundations of Mesopotamian kingship rested upon the ability of rulers to coordinate agricultural production, manage irrigation systems, regulate trade relationships, and control the distribution of goods and services within their territories. Administrative capabilities documented through thousands of cuneiform tablets from palace archives that record tax collection, labor mobilization, craft production, and commercial transactions conducted under royal authority, while archaeological investigations of royal storehouses, workshops, and administrative facilities reveal the scale and complexity of economic activities coordinated by palace bureaucracies that employed hundreds of scribes, accountants, and supervisors responsible for managing the material resources that supported royal courts, military forces, and public works projects. The development of writing in Mesopotamia was intimately connected with the administrative needs of royal governments, as evidenced by the earliest cuneiform tablets from Europe, which record economic transactions, tax assessments, and inventory lists maintained by palace and temple bureaucracies. While the evolution of writing from simple accounting notation to complex literary expression enabled Mesopotamian kings to commission detailed historical records, legal codes, and propagandistic texts that celebrated royal achievements while establishing precedents for governmental authority that would influence political development. Throughout the ancient world, royal patronage of education and scholarship in Mesopotamian courts led to the development of sophisticated intellectual traditions including mathematics, astronomy, medicine, and literature, with palace scribal schools training the administrative personnel necessary for governmental operations while simultaneously preserving and transmitting cultural knowledge through the copying and study of ancient texts, the compilation of lexical lists and reference works, and the composition of new literary works that celebrated royal achievements, while exploring fundamental questions about human nature, divine authority, and social organization. The military organization of Mesopotamian kingdoms reflected the central role of warfare in establishing and maintaining royal authority, with archaeological evidence revealing the development of professional armies equipped with standardized weapons, protective armor, and wheeled vehicles that enabled rapid deployment across vast territories, while palace armories, training facilities, and barracks complexes demonstrate the resources invested in military preparedness by rulers who understood that political authority ultimately depended upon the ability to project force against external enemies and internal challengers. The reign of Sargon of Akkad to 334 to 79 BCE marked a revolutionary transformation in Mesopotamian political organization, with the establishment of the world's first multi-ethnic empire that extended from the Persian Gulf to the Mediterranean Sea, incorporating dozens of previously independent city-states under unified imperial administration, while developing new models of governmental authority, cultural integration, and economic coordination that would influence imperial development throughout the ancient world, with Sargon's innovations including standardized administrative practices, professional military forces, diplomatic protocols, and cultural policies that enabled effective governance of diverse populations, speaking different languages, worshiping different deities, and maintaining distinct local traditions. The Akkadian Empire established by Sargon of Akkad represents one of the most significant political innovations in human history, creating the world's first multi-ethnic territorial state through military conquest, administrative innovation, and cultural integration policies that would serve as models for imperial development throughout the ancient world, with archaeological evidence from sites across Mesopotamia, Syria, and Anatolia revealing the extraordinary scope and sophistication of Akkadian governmental institutions that enabled effective control over territories spanning nearly 2,000 kilometers from the Zagros Mountains to the Mediterranean coast. Sargon's rise to power, documented through later literary traditions and contemporary inscriptions, began with his conquest of Sumerian city-states that had dominated southern Mesopotamia for centuries, utilizing innovative military tactics including composite bows, professional infantry formations, and coordinated siege operations that overcame traditional fortifications, while incorporating defeated populations into an expanding imperial system that offered opportunities for advancement based on loyalty and competence rather than ethnic origin or local citizenship. The administrative innovations introduced by Sargon and his successors, particularly his grandson Naram-Sin, included the appointment of Akkadian governors to oversee conquered territories, the establishment of standardized taxation systems, the creation of imperial communication networks, and the development of legal frameworks that balanced respect for local customs with the requirements of imperial unity. Policies documented through thousands of administrative tablets, from palace archives at Gursu, Nippur, and other major centers, that reveal the complexity of governmental operations required to manage an empire, encompassing millions of inhabitants engaged in agriculture, craft production, and long-distance trade. The Akkadian kings developed a distinctive royal ideology that emphasized their role as universal monarchs chosen by the gods to bring order and prosperity to all peoples, a conception of imperial authority expressed through monumental inscriptions, artistic representations, and architectural projects that celebrated military victories while portraying conquest as beneficial to conquered populations who gained access to Akkadian legal protections, economic opportunities, and cultural achievements. Though archaeological evidence also reveals the military infrastructure necessary to maintain imperial control, including fortified administrative centers, strategic road networks, and garrison settlements that enabled rapid deployment of forces against rebellions or external threats. The collapse of the Akkadian Empire around 2150 for BCE, attributed by ancient texts to divine displeasure, and modern scholars to a combination of climate change, administrative overextension, and coordinated rebellions by subject populations, led to a period of political fragmentation followed by the emergence of the Neo-Sumerian, or Earth-III Dynasty 2112-2000 for BCE under Ur-Nammu and his successors, who restored centralized authority over southern Mesopotamia, while developing even more sophisticated administrative systems that are documented through one of the largest archives of cuneiform tablets ever discovered, providing unprecedented insight into ancient governmental operations, economic management, and social organization. The Earth-III state established by Ur-Nammu and his successors, who restored centralized authority over southern Mesopotamia while developing even more sophisticated administrative systems that are documented through one of the largest archives of cuneiform tablets ever discovered, providing unprecedented insight into ancient governmental operations, economic management, and social organization. The Earth-III state established by Ur-Nammu and perfected by his son Shulgi represented the pinnacle of Mesopotamian administrative achievement, with a bureaucratic system that maintained detailed records of agricultural production, craft manufacturing, labor allocation, and resource distribution across hundreds of cities and towns, coordinated through a hierarchy of provincial governors, district administrators, and local officials who reported regularly to the royal court at Ur, while implementing standardized policies for taxation, justice, military recruitment, and public works projects that required unprecedented levels of governmental coordination and oversight. Archaeological investigations at Earth-III administrative centers have revealed the physical infrastructure of ancient bureaucracy, including vast archive rooms containing tens of thousands of tablets, specialized workshops for producing administrative materials, messenger stations for maintaining communication networks, and residential quarters for the army of scribes, accountants, and supervisors required to operate the most sophisticated governmental system developed in the ancient world prior to the Roman Empire, while the standardized formats, terminology, and procedures documented in administrative texts reveal the systematization of governmental operations that enabled effective management of complex economic and social activities across vast territories. The legal innovations of the Earth-III period, culminating in the Law Code of Ur-Nammu, represent the earliest known attempt to systematize royal justice through written legislation that established standardized procedures for resolving disputes, punishing crimes, and protecting the rights of various social classes. with provisions covering marriage and divorce, property rights, commercial transactions, personal injury, and criminal behavior that reveal sophisticated understanding of social organization and governmental authority while establishing precedents for legal development that would influence jurisprudence throughout the ancient Near East for centuries. The economic achievements of the Earth-3 state, documented through detailed administrative records of agricultural production, craft manufacturing, and commercial activities, demonstrate the capacity of royal governments to coordinate complex economic systems that supported urban populations numbering in the hundreds of thousands, while maintaining professional military forces, funding massive construction projects, and engaging in long-distance trade relationships that connected Mesopotamian cities with resource zones and markets across the ancient world, from the tin mines of Afghanistan to the cedar forests of Lebanon, revealing the global scope of economic networks coordinated through royal administrative systems. The religious dimensions of Earth-3 kingship reflected the development of increasingly sophisticated theological frameworks for understanding royal authority, with kings like Shulgi and Shusen claiming divine status while maintaining traditional responsibilities as earthly representatives of patron deities. A complex relationship between human and divine authority expressed through royal hymns, religious inscriptions, and ceremonial practices that emphasize the cosmic significance of royal rule, while documenting the practical religious obligations that consume substantial royal resources and administrative attention. The military organization of the Earth-3 state combined traditional Mesopotamian warfare practices with administrative innovations that enabled more effective coordination of military operations, troop deployment, and logistical support, with archaeological evidence revealing the construction of fortified frontier installations, the maintenance of professional military units, and the development of siege technologies that enabled Earth-3 armies to project power across vast distances, while defending imperial territories against incursions by nomadic groups from the Iranian plateau and the Syrian steppe. The cultural achievements of the Earth-3 period included unprecedented investments in education, scholarship, and artistic production that were coordinated through royal patronage systems, with palace and temple schools training the literate personnel necessary for governmental administration while simultaneously preserving and developing intellectual traditions including literature, mathematics, astronomy, and religious scholarship that would form the foundation for Mesopotamian cultural development throughout subsequent centuries, demonstrating the role of royal courts as centers of learning and cultural innovation. The architectural monuments commissioned by Earth-3 rulers, including the Great Ziggurat, the palace complex at Gursu, and temple renovations across dozens of cities, required the mobilization of enormous human and material resources while demonstrating advanced engineering knowledge, sophisticated artistic vision, and coordinated project management that reveals the capacity of royal governments to undertake massive public works projects that served both practical and symbolic functions, providing employment for urban populations while creating physical manifestations of royal power and divine favor that reinforce governmental authority through architectural grandeur. The collapse of the Earth-3 state around 2004 BC resulted from a combination of factors, including Amorite invasions, administrative exhaustion, climate-induced agricultural difficulties, and the inherent challenges of governing vast territories with limited communication and transportation technologies, leading to political fragmentation that would characterize Mesopotamian political organization for the next several centuries as regional powers competed for dominance while developing new approaches to governmental authority, military organization, and cultural integration that would ultimately contribute to the emergence of the Babylonian and Assyrian empires that would dominate Near Eastern politics for over a millennium. The collapse of centralized authority following the end of the Ur-3 dynasty ushered in a period of political fragmentation known as the Eisenlarsa period, 2017–1763 BCE, during which dozens of independent city-states and regional kingdoms competed for territorial control and commercial advantage, while developing new models of political organization, military technology, and diplomatic relations that would fundamentally reshape Mesopotamian civilization and establish the foundations for the imperial systems that would dominate the ancient Near East for the next millennia. The Amorite dynasties that established themselves in major Mesopotamian cities during this period, including the kingdoms of Isin, Larsa, Babylon, Assyria, and Mari, represented a new phase in the evolution of royal authority that combined traditional Mesopotamian governmental institutions with tribal leadership structures, nomadic military traditions, and innovative approaches to cultural integration that enabled rulers of foreign origin to establish legitimate authority over urban populations, while maintaining connections with pastoral communities that provided military manpower and commercial opportunities. Archaeological investigations at sites such as Mari, where the Palace of Zimri-Lim has yielded over 25,000 cuneiform tablets, documenting diplomatic correspondence, administrative procedures, and royal ceremonial activities, reveal the sophisticated political systems developed by Amorite rulers who maintained extensive networks of alliances, marriage relationships, and commercial partnerships that connected kingdoms across the Fertile Crescent, while simultaneously developing internal administrative capabilities necessary to govern complex urban societies with diverse economic activities and social hierarchies. The diplomatic revolution of the Old Babylonian period, evidenced through hundreds of letters exchanged between royal courts, from Anatolia to southern Mesopotamia, established new protocols for international relations that emphasized negotiated settlements, formal treaty arrangements, and regular communication between rulers who recognized each other as equals, while competing for regional influence through military pressure, economic incentives, and cultural diplomacy, creating a system of international law and diplomatic practice that would influence political development throughout the ancient world. The reign of Hammurabi of Babylon 179 to 1750 BCE represents one of the most significant achievements in the history of Mesopotamian kingship, combining military conquest, administrative innovation, and legal systematization to create a territorial state that would serve as the model for imperial development throughout the subsequent history of the region, with Hammurabi's code representing not only the most comprehensive legal document surviving from the ancient world, but also a sophisticated attempt to systematize royal justice, while establishing the theoretical framework for monarchical authority that would influence governmental development across multiple civilizations. The military innovations of the Old Babylonian period, including the development of horse-drawn chariots, composite bows, and siege engines, enabled rulers like Hammurabi to overcome traditional fortifications while projecting power across vast distances. Though the most significant military development was the creation of professional armies that combined traditional Mesopotamian infantry with nomadic cavalry units and foreign mercenaries, creating more flexible and effective military forces that could adapt to diverse combat situations while maintaining loyalty to royal commanders through regular pay, equipment provision, and opportunities for advancement based on military service. The economic foundations of Old Babylonian kingdoms rested upon sophisticated commercial systems that connected local agricultural production with long-distance trade networks, enabling rulers to generate the revenues necessary for military operations, administrative expansion, and monumental construction through taxation of agricultural surpluses, regulation of commercial activities, and participation in international trade relationships that brought precious metals, exotic materials, and manufactured goods to royal courts while providing markets for local products including textiles, metalwork, and agricultural commodities. The administrative achievements of rulers like Hammurabi included the development of standardized governmental procedures, regular communication systems between central and provincial authorities, and systematic record-keeping practices that enabled effective coordination of governmental activities across territories, encompassing hundreds of cities and towns, with palace archives containing detailed records of tax collection, judicial decisions, military operations, and diplomatic correspondence that reveal the complexity of ancient governmental operations, while providing modern scholars with unprecedented insight into the practical aspects of royal administration. The cultural policies of old Babylonian rulers emphasized the integration of diverse populations through religious tolerance, legal equality, and opportunities for social advancement, with royal inscriptions celebrating the protection of all subjects regardless of ethnic origin, while archaeological evidence reveals the material prosperity achieved by urban populations under effective royal government, including improved housing, expanded craft production, and increased access to luxury goods that demonstrate the benefits of political stability and economic coordination provided by centralized authority. The religious dimensions of old Babylonian kingship reflected the continued evolution of theological frameworks for understanding royal authority, with rulers like Hammurabi claiming divine appointment while acknowledging their subordination to the gods. A balance between human and divine authority expressed through extensive temple patronage, regular performance of religious ceremonies, and the incorporation of divine symbols into royal iconography that reinforce the sacred dimensions of political power while maintaining practical governmental responsibilities. The legal innovations of Hammurabi's code established precedents for royal justice that would influence legal development throughout the ancient world, with provisions covering commercial law, family relations, property rights, and criminal justice that reveal sophisticated understanding of social organization while establishing the principle that royal authority derives its legitimacy from the protection of subjects' rights and the maintenance of social order through impartial application of written law rather than arbitrary royal decisions. The architectural achievements of old Babylonian rulers included massive construction projects that required unprecedented coordination of human and material resources, while demonstrating advanced engineering capabilities and artistic sophistication. With projects like the rebuilding of Babylon's ceremonial center, the construction of canal systems that supported agricultural expansion, and the creation of palace complexes that served as administrative centers while providing impressive settings for royal ceremonial activities that reinforce governmental authority. Through architectural grandeur and artistic achievement, the diplomatic correspondence preserved in old Babylonian archives reveals the development of sophisticated international relations systems that enabled rulers to coordinate military operations, negotiate territorial settlements, arrange dynastic marriages, and manage commercial relationships across vast distances, with diplomatic protocols that emphasize formal equality between rulers, while acknowledging practical differences in military power and territorial control, creating frameworks for international cooperation and conflict resolution that would influence diplomatic practice throughout subsequent centuries. The decline of old Babylonian royal authority resulted from a combination of factors, including Hittite raids, Kassite invasions, internal rebellions, and the inherent difficulties of governing large territories with limited communication and transportation technologies. Though the governmental innovations, legal precedents, and cultural achievements of rulers like Hammurabi would continue to influence Mesopotamian political development while providing models for imperial organization that would be adopted and adapted by the Assyrian and Neo-Babylonian empires that would dominate the ancient Near East during the first millennium BCE. The emergence of the Assyrian Empire during the second and first millennia BCE represents the culmination of Mesopotamian political development, creating the largest and most sophisticated imperial system in the ancient world. Through military innovations, administrative reforms, and cultural policies that would influence imperial organization throughout subsequent history, while establishing new standards for governmental efficiency, territorial control, and population management that enabled effective rule over territories spanning from Egypt to Iran, and encompassing dozens of previously independent kingdoms with diverse languages, religions, and cultural traditions. The foundations of Assyrian imperial power were established during the Middle Assyrian period, 1365 to 1074 BCE, when rulers like Shalmaneser I, Tukulti-Ninurta I, and Tiglath-Pileser I developed the military technologies, administrative procedures, and ideological frameworks that would enable their Neo-Assyrian successors to create the most extensive empire in ancient Near Eastern history, with archaeological evidence from Assyrian royal capitals revealing the massive scale of resources invested in military preparation, governmental coordination, and monumental construction that demonstrated the capacity of centralized authority to mobilize human and material resources on an unprecedented scale. The military innovations that enabled Assyrian imperial expansion included the development of iron weapons, siege engines, cavalry units, and professional army organization that created the most effective military force in the ancient world, capable of conducting simultaneous campaigns across multiple theaters, while maintaining garrison forces in conquered territories and defending extensive frontier zones against nomadic incursions and rival empires, with Assyrian military engineering achieving particular sophistication in siege warfare techniques that could overcome the most formidable fortifications, while minimizing casualties among attacking forces. The administrative achievements of the Neo-Assyrian Empire, 911 to 609 BCE, included the creation of provincial systems that balanced central control with local autonomy, enabling effective governance of diverse populations while extracting the resources necessary for military operations and imperial administration, with standardized procedures for tax collection, judicial administration, and communication coordination that were documented through extensive archives of administrative tablets, royal correspondence, and provincial reports that reveal the complexity of imperial governmental operations. The reign of Tiglath-Pileser III 7 to 7 BCE marked a revolutionary transformation in Assyrian imperial organization through reforms that systematized provincial administration, professionalized military service, and standardized tax collection while developing new policies for population management, including deportation and resettlement programs that reduce the risk of coordinated rebellions, while providing labor for imperial construction projects and agricultural development in underpopulated regions, creating governmental precedents that would influence imperial administration throughout subsequent history. Archaeological investigations at Assyrian royal capitals including Ashur, Nimrud, Khorsabad, and Nineveh have revealed the extraordinary scale and sophistication of imperial administrative centers that served as coordination hubs for governmental activities spanning continents, with palace complexes containing hundreds of rooms for administrative offices, throne halls capable of accommodating thousands of visitors, residential quarters for royal families and court officials, and storage facilities for the tribute and taxation revenues that supported imperial operations while demonstrating royal power. Through architectural grandeur and artistic achievement, the cultural policies of Assyrian rulers emphasized the integration of conquered populations through religious tolerance, administrative opportunities, and economic incentives that enabled subject peoples to maintain their traditional customs, while contributing to imperial prosperity. Though Assyrian military campaigns also employed psychological warfare techniques, including the public display of captured enemies, the destruction of rebellious cities, and the deportation of resistant populations that created widespread fear of Assyrian military power, while encouraging voluntary submission to imperial authority. The economic foundations of the Assyrian Empire rested upon sophisticated systems for extracting agricultural surpluses, regulating commercial activities, and coordinating long-distance trade that connected imperial territories with markets and resource zones across the ancient world. generating the revenues necessary to maintain professional armies, numbering in the hundreds of thousands, while funding massive construction projects, supporting extensive governmental bureaucracies, and providing the luxury goods that maintained elite loyalty to imperial authority. The religious dimensions of Assyrian kingship combined traditional Mesopotamian concepts of divine authority with imperial innovations that portrayed rulers as universal monarchs, chosen by Ashur to bring order and prosperity to all peoples, a conception of royal authority that justified military conquest as religious obligation, while requiring kings to demonstrate their worthiness through military success, architectural achievements, and the proper performance of religious ceremonies that maintained divine favor and ensured imperial prosperity. The military organization of the Neo-Assyrian Empire achieved unprecedented sophistication through the integration of infantry, cavalry, chariot units, and siege specialists into coordinated operational systems that could adapt to diverse combat situations while maintaining logistical support networks that enabled sustained campaigns across vast distances, with military innovations including standardized equipment, regular training programs, and merit-based promotion systems that created professional military forces capable of defeating any contemporary army while maintaining loyalty to imperial commanders through regular pay and opportunities for advancement. The diplomatic achievements of Assyrian rulers included the development of comprehensive treaty systems that regulated relationships with subject kingdoms, allied states, and rival empires while establishing protocols for tribute collection, military cooperation, and dispute resolution that created frameworks for international relations that would influence diplomatic practice throughout the ancient world, with Assyrian diplomatic correspondence revealing sophisticated understanding of power politics, strategic geography, and cultural differences that enabled effective management of complex international relationships. The legal and administrative innovations of the Assyrian Empire included the systematization of provincial government, the standardization of judicial procedures, and the creation of communication networks that enabled rapid coordination of governmental activities across territories spanning thousands of kilometers while maintaining central control over local administrative operations, with Assyrian administrative tablets revealing governmental procedures that balanced efficiency with accountability while providing opportunities for subject populations to participate in imperial administration through appointment to provincial positions based on competence and loyalty rather than ethnic origin or local citizenship. The architectural achievements of Assyrian rulers included the construction of royal capitals that served as impressive demonstrations of imperial power, while providing practical facilities for governmental administration, military coordination, and ceremonial activities, with projects like the Palace of Sennacherib at Nineveh requiring the labor of thousands of workers, while incorporating advanced engineering techniques, sophisticated artistic programs, and defensive features that created urban centers capable of serving as effective coordination hubs for imperial operations, while impressing visitors with the wealth and power of Assyrian royal authority. The decline and collapse of the Assyrian Empire between 627 and 609 BCE resulted from a combination of factors including administrative overextension, military exhaustion, coordinated rebellions by subject populations, and attacks by allied enemies, including Babylonia and Media, though the governmental innovations, military technologies, and administrative precedents established by Assyrian rulers would continue to influence imperial development throughout the ancient world, while providing models for territorial organization and population management that would be adopted by subsequent empires including the Persian, Hellenistic, and Roman systems that would dominate Mediterranean and Near Eastern politics for centuries. The Neo-Babylonian Empire's 626 to 539 BCE represented the final flowering of native Mesopotamian royal authority, combining traditional Babylonian governmental institutions with imperial innovations adapted from Assyrian precedents to create a territorial state that would dominate the ancient Near East for nearly a century while achieving unprecedented levels of architectural achievement, cultural sophistication, and economic prosperity under rulers like Nabopolassar, Nebuchadnezzar II, and Nabonidus, who understood their role as heirs to 3 millennia of Mesopotamian political development and cultural achievement. The establishment of Neo-Babylonian independence under Nabopolassar VI to 6605 BCE marked the culmination of centuries of struggle against Assyrian domination, achieved through military alliance with media, diplomatic coordination with Egypt and other regional powers, and the mobilization of Babylonian urban populations, who viewed independence as an opportunity to restore traditional religious practices, economic relationships, and cultural identities that have been subordinated to Assyrian imperial policies, creating political momentum that enabled rapid expansion of Babylonian territorial control across the former Assyrian Empire's southern provinces. The reign of Nebuchadnezzar II, 605 to 560 BCE, represents one of the greatest achievements in Mesopotamian royal history, combining military conquest that extended Babylonian control from the Persian Gulf to the Mediterranean coast with architectural projects that transformed Babylon into the most impressive urban center in the ancient world, while developing administrative systems that enabled effective governance of diverse populations, engaged in agriculture, craft production, and long-distance commerce that connected Babylonian territories with markets across the known world. Archaeological investigations of Babylon during the Neo-Babylonian period have revealed the extraordinary scale and sophistication of royal construction projects, including the famous Hanging Gardens, the Ishtar Gate with its glazed brick decorations, depicting dragons and bulls, the processional way leading to the city center, and the massive ziggurat known as the Tower of Babel, all of which required unprecedented coordination of human and material resources, while demonstrating advanced engineering capabilities and artistic achievement that established new standards for royal architectural patronage throughout the ancient world. The military achievements of Neo-Babylonian rulers included successful campaigns against Egypt, the conquest of Jerusalem, and the deportation of the Jewish population to Babylon, the siege and capture of Tyre after a 13-year blockade, and the establishment of garrison forces and administrative centers throughout Syria-Palestine that enabled effective control over the crucial land bridge connecting Mesopotamia with Egypt and the Mediterranean world, creating an imperial system that generated enormous revenues through taxation and tribute, while controlling the most important commercial routes in the ancient Near East. The administrative innovations of the Neo-Babylonian Empire combined traditional Babylonian governmental institutions with imperial precedents adapted from Assyrian practice, creating hybrid systems that balance central authority with provincial autonomy, while maintaining cultural and religious traditions that reinforce the legitimacy of royal rule among Babylonian urban populations and subject peoples who benefited from the economic prosperity and cultural renaissance that characterized this final phase of independent Mesopotamian political development. The economic achievements of Neo-Babylonian rulers included the development of sophisticated commercial systems that connected local agricultural production with international trade networks, enabling the concentration of wealth that supported massive construction projects while providing employment for urban populations, engaged in craft production, commercial activities, and administrative services, with Babylonian merchants and banking houses establishing commercial relationships that extended from India to Egypt while maintaining the financial systems that enabled imperial operations and royal patronage of cultural and religious activities. The cultural policies of Neo-Babylonian kings emphasized the restoration and promotion of traditional Mesopotamian religious practices, artistic traditions, and scholarly activities that had been neglected during the Assyrian period, with royal patronage supporting the reconstruction of ancient temples, the compilation of religious and literary texts, and the development of astronomical and mathematical knowledge that would influence intellectual development throughout the Hellenistic and Roman periods, while establishing Babylon as the acknowledged center of ancient learning and cultural achievement. The religious dimensions of Neo-Babylonian kingship reflected sophisticated theological understanding of royal authority that portrayed kings as chosen representatives of Marduk and other traditional Babylonian deities, responsible for maintaining cosmic order through proper ritual performance, temple restoration, and the protection of religious traditions that connected contemporary rulers with the ancient heritage of Mesopotamian civilization, a conception of royal authority that required extensive investment in religious activities, while providing ideological justification for imperial expansion and territorial consolidation. The diplomatic achievements of Assyrian rulers included the development of comprehensive treaty systems that regulated relationships with subject kingdoms, allied states, and rival empires, while establishing protocols for tribute collection, military cooperation, and dispute resolution that created frameworks for international relations that would influence diplomatic practice throughout the ancient world, with Assyrian diplomatic correspondence revealing sophisticated understanding of power politics, strategic geography, and cultural differences that enabled effective management of complex international relationships. The legal and administrative innovations of the Assyrian Empire included the systematization of provincial government, the standardization of judicial procedures, and the creation of communication networks that enabled rapid coordination of governmental activities across territories spanning thousands of kilometers, while maintaining central control over local administrative operations, with Assyrian administrative tablets revealing governmental procedures that balanced efficiency with accountability, while providing opportunities for subject populations to participate in imperial administration through appointment to provincial positions based on competence and loyalty rather than ethnic origin or local citizenship. The architectural achievements of Assyrian rulers included the construction of royal capitals that served as impressive demonstrations of imperial power, while providing practical facilities for governmental administration, military coordination, and ceremonial activities, with projects like the Palace of Sennacherib at Nineveh requiring the labor of thousands of workers, while incorporating advanced engineering techniques, sophisticated artistic programs, and defensive features that created urban centers capable of serving as effective coordination hubs for imperial operations, while impressing visitors with the wealth and power of Assyrian royal authority. The decline and collapse of the Assyrian Empire between 627 and 609 BCE resulted from a combination of factors including administrative overextension, military exhaustion, coordinated rebellions by subject populations, and attacks by allied enemies, including Babylonia and Media, though the governmental innovations, military technologies, and administrative precedents established by Assyrian rulers would continue to influence imperial development throughout the ancient world, while providing models for territorial organization and population management that would be adopted by subsequent empires, including the Persian, Hellenistic, and Roman systems that would dominate Mediterranean and Near Eastern politics for centuries. The Neo-Babylonian Empire's 626 to 539 BCE represented the final flowering of native Mesopotamian royal authority, combining traditional Babylonian governmental institutions with imperial innovations adapted from Assyrian precedents to create a territorial state that would dominate the ancient Near East for nearly a century, while achieving unprecedented levels of architectural achievement, cultural sophistication, and economic prosperity under rulers like Nabopolassar, Nebuchadnezzar II, and Nabonidus, who understood their role as heirs to 3 millennia of Mesopotamian political development and cultural achievement. The establishment of Neo-Babylonian independence under Nabopolassar 6 to 605 BCE marked the culmination of centuries of struggle against Assyrian domination achieved through military alliance with media, diplomatic coordination with Egypt and other regional powers, and the mobilization of Babylonian urban populations, who viewed independence as an opportunity to restore traditional religious practices, economic relationships, and cultural identities that had been subordinated to Assyrian imperial policies, creating political momentum that enabled rapid expansion of Babylonian territorial control across the former Assyrian Empire's southern provinces. The reign of Nebuchadnezzar II, 605 to 560 BCE, represents one of the greatest achievements in Mesopotamian royal history, combining military conquest that extended Babylonian control from the Persian Gulf to the Mediterranean coast with architectural projects that transformed Babylon into the most impressive urban center in the ancient world, while developing administrative systems that enabled effective governance of diverse populations, engaged in agriculture, craft production, and long-distance commerce that connected Babylonian territories with markets across the known world. Archaeological investigations at Babylon during the Neo-Babylonian period have revealed the extraordinary scale and sophistication of royal construction projects, including the famous Hanging Gardens, the Ishtar Gate with its glazed brick decorations, depicting dragons and bulls, the processional way leading to the city center, and the massive ziggurat known as the Tower of Babel, all of which required unprecedented coordination of human and material resources, while demonstrating advanced engineering capabilities and artistic achievement that established new standards for royal architectural patronage throughout the ancient world. The military achievements of Neo-Babylonian rulers included successful campaigns against Egypt, the conquest of Jerusalem, and the deportation of the Jewish population to Babylon, the siege and capture of Tyre after a 13-year blockade, and the establishment of garrison forces and administrative centers throughout Syria-Palestine that enabled effective control over the crucial land bridge connecting Mesopotamia with Egypt and the Mediterranean world, creating an imperial system that generated enormous revenues through taxation and tribute, while controlling the most important commercial routes in the ancient Near East. The administrative innovations of the Neo-Babylonian Empire combined traditional Babylonian governmental institutions with imperial precedents adapted from Assyrian practice, creating hybrid systems that balance central authority with provincial autonomy, while maintaining cultural and religious traditions that reinforce the legitimacy of royal rule among Babylonian urban populations and subject peoples who benefited from the economic prosperity and cultural renaissance that characterized this final phase of independent Mesopotamian political development. The economic achievements of Neo-Babylonian rulers included the development of sophisticated commercial systems that connected local agricultural production with international trade networks, enabling the concentration of wealth that supported massive construction projects while providing employment for urban populations, engaged in craft production, commercial activities, and administrative services, with Babylonian merchants and banking houses establishing commercial relationships that extended from India to Egypt while maintaining the financial systems that enabled imperial operations and royal patronage of cultural and religious activities. The cultural policies of Neo-Babylonian kings emphasized the restoration and promotion of traditional Mesopotamian religious practices, artistic traditions, and scholarly activities that had been neglected during the Assyrian period, with royal patronage supporting the reconstruction of ancient temples, the compilation of religious and literary texts, and the development of astronomical and mathematical knowledge that would influence intellectual development throughout the Hellenistic and Roman periods, while establishing Babylon as the acknowledged center of ancient learning and cultural achievement. The religious dimensions of Neo-Babylonian kingship reflected sophisticated theological understanding of royal authority that portrayed kings as chosen representatives of Marduk and other traditional Babylonian deities, responsible for maintaining cosmic order through proper ritual performance, temple restoration, and the protection of religious traditions that connected contemporary rulers with the ancient heritage of Mesopotamian civilization, a conception of royal authority that required extensive investment in religious activities, while providing ideological justification for imperial expansion and territorial consolidation. The diplomatic achievements of Neo-Babylonian rulers included the negotiation of complex treaty arrangements with Egypt, Media, Lydia, and other contemporary powers that established frameworks for territorial division, commercial cooperation, and military coordination that enabled peaceful coexistence among major imperial systems, while protecting Babylonian interests in Syria-Palestine and maintaining access to Mediterranean trade routes that were crucial for imperial economic prosperity and political stability. The legal and judicial innovations of the Neo-Babylonian period built upon earlier Mesopotamian legal traditions, while incorporating new procedures for commercial law, property rights, and administrative justice that reflected the increased complexity of imperial society and the growing importance of international commerce, and supporting royal revenues and urban prosperity, with legal documents from this period revealing sophisticated understanding of contractual relationships, inheritance, procedures, and dispute resolution mechanisms that would influence legal development throughout the Hellenistic period and beyond. The educational and scholarly achievements of Neo-Babylonian courts included unprecedented investment in scribal training, library development, and intellectual patronage that supported advances in astronomy, mathematics, medicine, and literature, while preserving and transmitting the accumulated knowledge of 3 millennia of Mesopotamian civilization, creating intellectual institutions that would continue to influence ancient learning, even after the political collapse of independent Babylonian authority under Persian conquest. The architectural and urban planning achievements of Nebuchadnezzar II transformed Babylon into a showcase of royal power and cultural sophistication that impressed visitors from across the ancient world, while demonstrating the capacity of centralized authority to coordinate massive construction projects that required advanced engineering knowledge, sophisticated project management, and the mobilization of enormous human and material resources over extended periods, establishing architectural precedents that would influence urban development throughout the Hellenistic and Roman periods. The military organization of the Neo-Babylonian Empire combined traditional Mesopotamian warfare practices with innovations adapted from Assyrian precedents and contemporary developments in military technology, creating professional armies capable of conducting complex siege operations, coordinating multi-theater campaigns, and maintaining garrison forces across vast territories while adapting to new challenges, including Greek mercenary forces, nomadic cavalry units, and the emerging military power of Persia under Cyrus the Great. The decline of Neo-Babylonian royal authority under Nabonidus 556 to 539 BCE resulted from a combination of religious controversies, administrative difficulties, external military pressure from the expanding Persian Empire, and internal opposition from Babylonian urban elites, who viewed royal policies as threats to traditional religious practices and economic interests, creating political instability that facilitated Persian conquest while ending over 3 millennia of independent Mesopotamian political development under native royal authority. The conquest of Babylon by Cyrus the Great in 539 BCE marked the end of independent Mesopotamian kingship while initiating a new phase in the region's political development under Persian imperial administration that would incorporate Mesopotamian governmental traditions, administrative expertise, and cultural achievements into the largest empire in ancient history, extending from India to Egypt and encompassing dozens of previously independent kingdoms under unified imperial control that demonstrated the enduring influence of Mesopotamian political innovations on subsequent imperial development. The Persian conquest of Mesopotamia represented not the destruction of ancient political traditions, but their incorporation into a more extensive imperial system that valued local administrative expertise, respected traditional religious practices, and utilized established governmental institutions, while adapting them to serve the requirements of multi-ethnic empire that ruled over populations speaking dozens of languages and maintaining diverse cultural traditions across 3 continents. Archaeological evidence from the Achaemenid period reveals the continued importance of Mesopotamian cities as administrative centers, commercial hubs, and cultural focal points within the Persian Empire, with sites like Babylon, Coffin, and Seleucia maintaining their roles as coordination centers for imperial activities, while adapting their physical infrastructure, administrative procedures, and cultural institutions to serve the requirements of Persian imperial policy and the changing demographics of cosmopolitan urban populations. The administrative traditions established by 3 millennia of Mesopotamian royal development provided crucial institutional foundations for Persian imperial organization, with Mesopotamian scribal expertise, legal precedents, and governmental procedures forming essential components of Achaemenid administrative systems that enabled effective governance of territories spanning from the Indus Valley to the Aegean Sea, while maintaining the cultural flexibility necessary to accommodate diverse populations with different languages, religions, and political traditions. The influence of Mesopotamian kingship on subsequent political development extended far beyond the geographic boundaries of the Tigris-Euphrates region, with governmental innovations, legal precedents, and administrative techniques developed by ancient Mesopotamian rulers providing models for imperial organization, urban administration, and territorial control that would influence political development throughout the ancient world, including the Greek polis system, Hellenistic kingdoms, the Roman Empire, and the Islamic caliphates that would dominate Near Eastern politics for centuries after the collapse of ancient Mesopotamian political independence. The cultural legacy of Mesopotamian kingship includes fundamental contributions to human political development, including the concepts of written law, professional administration, standing armies, diplomatic protocol, and centralized economic coordination that enabled the emergence of complex urban societies, while establishing precedents for governmental authority that would influence political theory and practice throughout subsequent history. With ancient Mesopotamian political texts, legal codes, and administrative documents continuing to provide insights into the practical challenges and theoretical foundations of governmental authority that remain relevant to contemporary political analysis. The archaeological rediscovery of Mesopotamian royal sites beginning in the 19th century CE has revealed the extraordinary sophistication and scale of ancient governmental institutions, while providing material evidence for political developments that were previously known only through literary sources, with ongoing excavations at sites like Ur, Babylon, Nineveh, and Mari continuing to yield new information about ancient administrative procedures, economic systems, and cultural practices that enhance modern understanding of early political development, while demonstrating the enduring significance of Mesopotamian contributions to human civilization. The preservation of Mesopotamian royal inscriptions, legal codes, and administrative archives in cuneiform script has enabled modern scholars to reconstruct detailed accounts of ancient governmental operations, military campaigns, diplomatic relationships, and cultural achievements that provide unprecedented insight into the practical aspects of early political authority while revealing the complexity and sophistication of administrative systems that govern populations numbering in the millions across territories spanning thousands of kilometers for periods extending over multiple centuries. The study of Mesopotamian kingship continues to influence contemporary understanding of political development, imperial organization, and cultural integration through scholarly research that utilizes archaeological evidence, textual analysis, and comparative methodology to examine the origins and evolution of governmental institutions, legal systems, and administrative practices that established fundamental precedents for political authority while demonstrating the capacity of human societies to develop sophisticated solutions to the challenges of coordination, cooperation, and conflict resolution in complex urban environments. The enduring legacy of Mesopotamian kingship extends beyond political and administrative innovations to encompass fundamental contributions to human cultural development, including artistic traditions, literary achievements, and intellectual accomplishments that would influence aesthetic standards, narrative structures, and scholarly methodologies throughout the ancient world, while establishing creative precedents that continue to shape contemporary understanding of royal patronage, cultural production, and the relationship between political authority and artistic achievement. The artistic traditions developed under Mesopotamian royal patronage, evidenced through thousands of relief sculptures, cylinder seals, metalwork objects, and architectural decorations recovered from archaeological sites across the region, established iconographic conventions and stylistic approaches that would influence artistic development throughout the ancient Near East, while creating visual vocabularies for representing royal authority, divine protection, and cultural identity that would be adopted and adapted by subsequent civilizations, including the Persians, Greeks, and Romans, who recognized the sophistication and symbolic power of Mesopotamian artistic traditions. The literary achievements of Mesopotamian royal courts, including epic narratives like Gilgamesh, historical chronicles, wisdom literature, and religious texts, created narrative structures and thematic content that would influence literary development throughout the ancient world, while establishing precedents for royal propaganda, historical documentation, and cultural transmission that demonstrate the crucial role of political patronage in supporting intellectual and creative activities that preserve and transmit cultural values across generations and geographic boundaries. The intellectual traditions fostered by Mesopotamian royal patronage, encompassing mathematics, astronomy, medicine, law, and engineering, established methodological approaches and accumulated knowledge that would provide foundations for scholarly development throughout the Hellenistic and Islamic periods, while demonstrating the capacity of centralized political authority to coordinate and support systematic investigation of natural phenomena, social organization, and technological innovation that benefits entire societies rather than merely serving immediate political or economic objectives. The diplomatic and legal precedents established by Mesopotamian kings through treaty negotiations, territorial settlements, and judicial procedures created frameworks for international relations and conflict resolution that would influence political practice throughout subsequent history, while establishing principles of sovereignty, territorial integrity, and legal equality that remain fundamental to contemporary international law and diplomatic protocol, demonstrating the enduring relevance of ancient political innovations to modern governmental challenges and international cooperation. The economic innovations developed under Mesopotamian royal authority, including standardized weights and measures, commercial law, banking procedures, and trade regulation, established institutional foundations for complex market economies that would support urban development and cultural achievement throughout the ancient world, while creating mechanisms for resource allocation, risk management, and economic coordination that enabled societies to achieve levels of prosperity and cultural sophistication that would have been impossible under less sophisticated political and economic arrangements. The urban planning and architectural achievements of Mesopotamian rulers, evidenced through the remains of cities like Babylon, Nineveh, and Ur, established precedents for municipal organization, public works coordination, and monumental construction that would influence urban development throughout subsequent history, while demonstrating the capacity of political authority to create physical environments that enhance quality of life for urban populations, while providing impressive settings for governmental, religious, and commercial activities that reinforce social cohesion and cultural identity. The military innovations developed by Mesopotamian kings, including professional army organization, siege warfare techniques, and logistical systems, established precedents for military organization and strategic thinking that would influence warfare throughout the ancient world while creating institutional mechanisms for projecting political authority across vast distances and defending territorial integrity against external threats and internal challenges that threaten political stability and social order. The religious and ideological frameworks developed by Mesopotamian rulers to justify and maintain political authority created theological and philosophical precedents for understanding the relationship between human and divine authority that would influence religious and political thought throughout subsequent history, while establishing conceptual foundations for monarchical legitimacy, governmental responsibility, and social obligation that continue to shape contemporary political theory and practice. The preservation and transmission of Mesopotamian royal traditions through Persian, Hellenistic, and Islamic administrative systems ensure the continued influence of ancient political innovations on subsequent governmental development while demonstrating the capacity of successful institutional arrangements to transcend the specific cultural and historical contexts in which they originated, adapting to new circumstances and requirements while maintaining essential features that contribute to effective political organization and social coordination. The modern rediscovery and scholarly analysis of Mesopotamian royal achievements through archaeological investigation, textual analysis, and comparative study has revealed the extraordinary sophistication and enduring relevance of ancient political innovations while providing contemporary societies with valuable insights into the challenges and opportunities associated with political development, cultural integration, and institutional design that remain relevant to current efforts to create effective governmental systems and promote international cooperation in an increasingly complex and interconnected world. The comprehensive examination of Mesopotamian kingship reveals a remarkable three-millennium evolution of political innovation, administrative sophistication, and cultural achievement that established fundamental precedents for governmental authority, legal systems, military organization, diplomatic practice, and cultural patronage that would influence human political development throughout subsequent history while demonstrating the extraordinary capacity of ancient societies to develop sophisticated solutions to complex challenges of social organization, economic coordination, and territorial control that enabled the emergence of urban civilization and the cultural achievements that continue to enrich human experience. The archaeological evidence recovered from royal sites across Mesopotamia, encompassing hundreds of thousands of cuneiform tablets, monumental architecture, artistic objects, and material remains of ancient governmental operations, provides unprecedented documentation of early political development while revealing the practical challenges and innovative solutions that enabled ancient rulers to govern complex societies, coordinate economic activities, maintain military forces, and support cultural institutions that preserved and transmitted accumulated knowledge and artistic traditions across generations of political change and cultural transformation. The influence of Mesopotamian royal innovations on subsequent imperial development, evidenced through the adoption and adaptation of administrative procedures, legal precedents, military technologies, and cultural practices by Persian, Hellenistic, Roman, and Islamic governmental systems, demonstrates the enduring value of institutional arrangements and political traditions that successfully balance central authority with local autonomy while maintaining the flexibility necessary to accommodate diverse populations and changing historical circumstances that required continuous adaptation of governmental policies and administrative procedures. The legacy of Mesopotamian kingship in contemporary political thought and institutional design reflects the fundamental relevance of ancient political innovations to modern challenges of governmental organization, international relations, and cultural integration, with principles of legal equality, administrative efficiency, diplomatic negotiation, and cultural tolerance that were first systematically developed by ancient Mesopotamian rulers continuing to influence contemporary efforts to create effective governmental systems and promote peaceful cooperation among diverse societies. In an increasingly interconnected world, the study of Mesopotamian royal achievements provides valuable insights into the relationship between political authority and cultural development, demonstrating the crucial role of governmental patronage in supporting educational institutions, scholarly research, artistic production, and technological innovation that benefit entire societies while revealing the importance of political stability and effective administration in creating conditions that enable human creativity and intellectual achievement to flourish across diverse fields of cultural and scientific endeavor. The preservation of Mesopotamian royal traditions through written records, architectural remains, and cultural practices that continued under subsequent political systems ensures that the achievements of ancient rulers remain accessible to contemporary scholarship while providing ongoing opportunities for research and analysis that enhance modern understanding of political development, cultural transmission, and institutional evolution that can inform contemporary efforts to address similar challenges of governmental organization and social coordination. The comprehensive documentation of Mesopotamian royal activities through administrative archives, historical inscriptions, and archaeological remains creates an unparalleled record of ancient political development that enables detailed analysis of governmental operations, policy implementation, and administrative coordination that reveals both the achievements and limitations of early political systems, while providing comparative perspectives on the challenges and opportunities associated with political authority in complex societies. The enduring fascination with Mesopotamian kings and their achievements, evidenced through continued scholarly research, popular interest, and cultural references that maintain awareness of ancient political innovations, reflects the fundamental human relevance of questions about political authority, social organization, and cultural development that were first systematically addressed by ancient Mesopotamian rulers, whose innovative solutions to governmental challenges established precedents that continue to influence political thought and institutional design throughout the contemporary world. Thus, the story of Mesopotamian kingship represents not merely an account of ancient political development, but a foundational narrative of human political achievement that demonstrates the capacity of organized societies to develop sophisticated governmental institutions, create effective administrative systems, and support cultural accomplishments that enrich human experience, while establishing precedents for political authority and social organization that remain relevant to contemporary efforts to create just, effective, and culturally supportive governmental systems that serve the needs of diverse populations in an increasingly complex and interconnected world, ensuring that the legacy of these ancient rulers continues to contribute to human political development and cultural achievement for future generations who will face new challenges, requiring the same combination of innovative thinking, practical wisdom, and commitment to effective governance that characterize the greatest achievements of Mesopotamian royal authority throughout its remarkable 3-millennium history of political innovation and cultural accomplishment.